You are now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. Many of the patients I've seen over the years come to me after being told that the symptoms they were complaining of are simply related to their stress or hormone levels, or even that it's all in their head. And that's what doctors have told them, because I really don't think their doctor understood what the root cause of their disease was. I've learned, however, that every symptom occurs for a specific reason, which is why we never be satisfied with we can't find the reason for your symptoms coming from our clinicians. Many autoimmune diseases are great examples of some of the most underdiagnosed medical conditions, and it includes things like Hashimoto's, celiac disease, inflammatory bowel disease, lupus, multiple sclerosis, and so many others. As a tip, when you think about autoimmune diseases, I want you to focus on your genetics, your environment, and your gut health. And since today's guest is female, I wanted you to know that many autoimmune conditions are more prevalent in females as well. And I thought about this and I wonder, well, why is that true? Women tend to have a more intense immune response, and they also tend to have autoimmune diseases that occur after pregnancy. So there's some connections between pregnancy and other factors that are unique to women. Today's guest is a female and someone you may know, which is Neisha Berry. Neisha has been a nurse for over 14 years and in the healthcare field for over 19 or since she was 19 years old. She specialized in geriatrics, labor and delivery, and even worked in a prison. She now has become a full-time wellness coach and YouTuber, along with her husband, Dr. KenDBerry, bringing great information to the masses that will help them optimize their health. And she did suffer personally from the autoimmune condition Hashimoto's, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about the infertility challenges she had. And of course, we're going to talk about how she overcame them using the ketovore dietary pattern. With that, Neisha, I welcome you to the Protecting Your Nest podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Hampton.
Absolutely. Very excited. And I'm just excited for all the work you're doing, all the work your husband's doing. And you may not know this, but we have a ton in common. And I'm going to tell you what those things are. Number one, I take care of a geriatric population primarily. As a family doctor, I did a lot of obstetrics in the past. So I actually have a maternal child health fellowship training. I've delivered 600 or 700 babies before I started taking care of these older babies. And so we have the geriatrics in common. We have the OB in common. And I did not work in a prison, but I did work at a facility that the prisoners went to after they got out of prison. And I was the guy that could, tell them when they can come in and go. So I did that when I was in college.
Wow.
And of course, we have similar dietary patterns. We try to be carnivore, but we sometimes slip into ketovore. And that's one of the reasons why I want you to come here to talk about that. And of course, the autoimmune issues that you've dealt with. So let's get the conversation started. And I know you are in love with Ken. It's not Ken and Barbie, it's Ken and Neisha. So listen, let's talk a little bit about how you guys first met. How did that love affair begin?
Well, we both are in healthcare, and we live in a very small town where everybody knows everybody and everybody's business. So we knew of each other for probably 10 years before we ever spoke to each other. And then he started sending me messages on Facebook and, let's hang out. We should hang out. And I put him off until finally I was like, fine. Okay. And so I went over to his house and we talked about books, and he was just very intellectual. And in where I live, it's just mostly, people, they like to hunt and fish.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I like to do that.
Yeah, blue collar. It's nothing wrong with that.
He was very into, and always has been, research and learning new things. And it just struck a chord with me. And we were friends for about a year. And then I finally was like, okay, maybe we can date. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Well, I'm so happy you guys found each other, and it's got to be a challenge in a small town. I remember when I was finishing my training, and I was trained to do a lot because of that OB. I was trained to do C-sections and tubals as a family doctor, but you can't really do that in a big city as much, right?
Right.
So I remember going to this small town called New Jerseyville, Illinois. And it was so interesting because it was just like you said, everybody knows everybody. And this is what happened. We went into the Walmart. I don't know anybody there. The lady at the register said, "Are you the doctor that's interviewing today?" I'm like, this random person. I'm like, how could you know that?
Yep, that sounds about like where we live. Uh-huh. Yep.
So I was like, and then me and my wife looked at me, and she literally went there to kind of work with the realtor because we were serious. And she was like, I don't know if I can do this. This Andy Griffin thing is pretty deep. So anyway,
There's some challenges to living in a small town.
yeah, I can imagine. So thank you for sharing how you guys started your journey. And I do want to ask, particularly because I'm now a YouTuber, as I'm trying to have a busy life, being a medical director and other things. So there's got to be some pros and cons. You guys are kind of doing more of that work than the clinical work. So anything about that you would say, this is not the good part about it, and this is what I love about it? I mean, because a lot of people have their own perception of what it would be like to be you guys. So
Right.
share a little bit about that.
I would say the pros to being a YouTube health influencer, I guess is what you would call what we do, is that we are able to reach so many people as opposed to when we were in the clinic or I was bedside nursing. I could only, see 5 patients. Ken could see 40 patients to 60 patients. And when he was seeing that many patients, it was a stressed time constraint on how much time he could give that individual patient. Insurance, I mean, as a doctor, it's a mess. The health system is just messed up. So the pros are we don't have to deal with all of that, and we are able to reach millions of people.
Yeah.
And promote a way of eating and live by example and not only talk about it but show it as well. So social media, I like to say, is it's a two-sided coin. There's good things and bad things. So I would say the bad part is while we have a flexible schedule that usually turns into not work all the time, basically, is what it ends up being.
Right.
Where when I went to the hospital, I went in at 7 and I clocked out at 7 and I went home and lived my life. And now my life is basically 24/7 work, and we have to set boundaries, and we're trying to get better at that. And of course, putting yourself out there on social media, you open yourself up to just being attacked from the most random people that have no idea who you are, and they have an opinion, and it's hard to distance the negative from the positive. But the longer you do it, the easier it gets to understand that you can't make everyone happy, and that's not my job. And just
Right.
push past that. But for the most part, uh, it's really a great tool, and we're very happy that we're able to do it this way because, like I said, we can just reach so many more people via social media than we ever could working in a clinic.
Yeah, and I don't know how much Ken knows how much he influenced me, but clearly it was his words when he was, I mean, I think he was like my third or fourth guest on the podcast. So he was like, I was like, so what tips you got? He said, you need to start making videos, dude. so,
Yeah.
so I really want to thank him through you for inspiring me to do that. And that's just kind of so I kind of use the podcast to kind of drive most of that. But hopefully, since I'm finished with school, with my nutrition and master's in nutrition, I'll have more time to make more videos because people, again, I learned about these dietary approaches through this medium, to be honest, which is ridiculous to even say out loud. So it's
Yeah.
embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but it's true. So you're a nurse, so anybody in healthcare understands, nutrition. We may not learn it, but what kind of really got you, what birthed this whole focus on nutrition for you? Because most, healthcare clinicians are focused on treating things with medicine. What happened in your life?
My personal health happened basically up until I was, I guess, 27. I didn't really care about nutrition. It wasn't part of my job description, so I didn't really care about it. I didn't do any research behind it. I just pretty much said, did the shop around the aisles, don't go down the aisles, eat real whole food, don't
Right.
eat junk. And, did I do that? No, I did not, because I was in my 20s and I was living it up and living off Red Bull and nicotine. Okay, it was a bad time. But once I got sick, I kind of had to face the fact that I needed to take my health seriously, and food could be a part of that. And Ken was already doing paleo at the
Mhm.
time when I first started getting sick, so I took up paleo. I didn't really see any improvements with that. And then he moved on to keto. And I was like, listen, I'm not doing that because I like pasta and I'm half Puerto Rican and rice is part of, my life. And no, I'm not doing that. I got sick enough to the point where it was worth giving it a try. And so I did. And it only took 7 days for me to see improvements in my brain fog, in my energy level, in my life quality. And I thought, man, if it only took 7 days for me to see a noticeable difference, then I should probably take this seriously. And so from that point forward, I just got more and more and more interested in how to fix my health with food. And I haven't stopped learning since, basically.
Yeah, it's fun. 7 days, right? And God
Good.
bless you. I mean, it's almost like a miracle. Again, if we could just put these dietary patterns in a pill, we'd all be rich, right? I
Right.
mean, no question. And then this pasta thing, I live in Oak Park, Illinois, just west of Chicago. And then we have River Forest, it's a slightly more expensive suburb. And it's like in both of these suburbs, just Italian restaurants everywhere, right? So it's pasta everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite things. So, but I don't miss it because I don't miss feeling bad, right? And then there's creative ways for us to enjoy those things
Exactly.
as well. So you had this battle with Hashimoto's, right?
Mhm.
And so talk a little bit about what that struggle was like, and and how did you overcome it?
Part of the struggle was figuring out what was wrong with me,
Hmm.
because I was pretty young when the symptoms started showing up. I was 25 when I first started kind of having just overall, I was just tired and I was way too young to be that tired. I was 25. I should be living my best life. And I just wanted to lay around all the time. And I had a drop in libido, which I was way too young for that. And so I would go to these providers and I would tell them, something's going on. This is not normal. And they would check my hormones. Well, your hormones are normal. It's probably just stress. And I was like, I don't have any stress. I
Right.
am living my dream life here. I have no, like, I was in school and that was pretty much the only stressor, but that wasn't something new to me. I'd basically been in school my whole life. It took me a long time to get to RN because I started out as a CNA and worked my way up. So that
Right.
wasn't like a new stressor that I hadn't been introduced to. So I was like, that's not it. So I just kept going until I just gave up. And then I got sicker and sicker and
Hmm.
sicker. And Ken, while we were dating, was like, I think maybe it's a thyroid thing. We should check your thyroid. And at the same time, I was having trouble getting pregnant. So we went to a fertility specialist, and he's the one that basically said, yes, it is Hashimoto's, and put me on nature thyroid. And we went from there. The biggest struggle was just the change. Autoimmune is a very strange disease. You can't see it on the outside. You look totally fine. Maybe you gain a little weight, but someone looking at you from the outside cannot tell how much damage is being done and how awful you feel. So
Hmm.
the biggest struggle was me being able to say to people, like, I'm very sick. I know
Hmm.
that I don't look sick and I seem fine, and them understanding that I was making these diet changes for health reasons and not necessarily to lose weight, and being able to push through and push harder and self experiment and dig, because no one was doing keto for Hashimoto's. In fact, it's very frowned upon. You shouldn't do it, and it was dangerous, and your thyroid's going to backfire, and all this. I was getting lots of kickback, so I had to push through that too. So for me, it was mostly finding my own way. There was no one there to guide me. All the Hashimoto's books pointed to paleo. And
Right.
I knew that that hadn't worked for me, and I knew that keto had, and so I just kept pushing. And then I did carnivore, which was a real big deal. You have Hashimoto's, you need carbs, you need carbs, you cannot do this. It's going to destroy your thyroid. And I got better every single time. I would push it a little bit farther and get a little bit more strict and eliminate more things.
Right.
My lab values kept improving. My antibodies kept going down. My symptoms kept getting better and better until they were just gone. And then I'm pretty sure the cherry on top of that was that I did get pregnant through IVF the first time, but then last year I got pregnant naturally. So my body has reacted really well to a meat based, animal based way of eating. And it's hard still. There are still people out there that want to scare women with Hashimoto's into not giving this a try. And I'm not saying it'll work for everybody, but I'm saying it worked for me and it's worth a go.
You know, as I listen to you, first of all, shout out to the clinician who actually looked for, a
Mm-hmm.
thyroid antibody. I mean, in my training, you did a TSH, and that was it. So somebody had enough sense to say, instead of just giving you a pill, they decided, let me look and see if there's a cause. So I really applaud that. So if anybody's watching this, please, if you're concerned about your thyroid, you may want to do a thyroid antibody. You may want to do a reverse T3. You may want to do a free T4 and a free T3. You may want to do those tests at all. And the question is, why would we care, right? Well, we care because maybe we can do something about it. Most people who get diagnosed with low thyroid, they just get on a pill and that's it. But if you just happen to have an autoimmune disease, share your thoughts briefly about why is it important to understand the root cause, right? But in particular, knowing that the root cause of your low thyroid is a particular autoimmune condition, why does it matter to know that?
Right. And I want to say that my TSH was totally normal. If I
Um,
had went by that, I would have never,
that's my point. Exactly. You wouldn't have known.
I wouldn't have known. And I would have just got sicker and sicker and sicker. But for me, being able to know, hey, there's an autoimmune disease involved here, gave me the knowledge to do more research, to question things, to really be able to better understand my disease and then implement whatever ways that I could find to improve it. So I think root causes, I don't think there's ever just one most of the time. I think it's a cluster.
That's right.
For me, it was a lot of um, trauma. Had been in a bad relationship. Right after that, I got breast implants, which can be linked
Right.
to triggering autoimmune. I had Epstein Barr, and I was eating a really horrible diet and not getting any sleep. I had horrible anxiety that was exacerbated by my autoimmune disease. And to be able to understand that I had some control, that there were things I could fix and trace back all those steps and understand how this started. And I am predisposed. My mom has Hashimoto's. So just it kind of gave me a sense of control over the situation to know that I may have turned that Hashimoto switch on, but I did have the power to turn it back off or at least put it back in its cage.
I'm very happy with your last few comments because when I did the intro, I said genetics matter. You just kind of proved that. Your environment matters, which has a lot to do with what you're eating and the stressors and other things. And then, of course, your gut health matters. So all of these things matter. So if anybody's watching this, it's important that you understand that we need to know the root cause so that we can then do something about it, because it sounds like you have improved and you've done better. And you may always be like, I'm always going to be vulnerable to an irritable stomach, right? But I kind of live like I don't have an irritable stomach. I
Right.
just have to, as long as I don't do the crazy stuff I was doing previously, to so-called, live better. And in that case, it was plant-based. It just wasn't working for me. I can actually put that into remission and not even think about it. So I think that's really important. You shared that you had some infertility issues, and that's an overwhelming experience. So talk a little bit more about that struggle. And obviously, I've had so many people with, polycystic ovarian syndrome and other conditions,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden they are doing so much better just by making dietary changes. All the doctors in America are giving people metformin. That's going to somehow solve the problem.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with metformin. It does reduce insulin resistance, and it has its benefits. But man, why not choose this diet? So talk a little bit about that struggle, and just add a little bit more to that.
Right. So for me, my infertility was because I had hypothyroid and the Hashimoto's. I had no idea that that was such a high trigger, but it's like number two. PCOS is number one, and then thyroid is number two. People don't even think about that. They immediately go straight to the PCOS and the
That's
metformin.
right. That's right.
And I agree. I think metformin's a great tool, but it's more of a band-aid. And can we put something on the bullet wound here?
That's
Let's fix
right.
the bullet wound. So I did a lot of research because IVF obviously it's very expensive. It's painful. You don't want to have to go through it a lot of times. It's not pleasurable as your, the natural way of going about having a baby, obviously. So I wanted to do everything in my power to make sure I made the most of my cycle. So I found Dr. Kiltz, who I'm sure you know,
Yep.
and he is a meat based fertility doctor out of New York. And he was really promoting carnivore. And I thought, here's someone validating the way I want to do this. So I felt way more comfortable going through that. So I did the carnivore, high fat, lots of eggs, and a whole slew of supplements because I wanted to cover all my bases. I even cut out coffee, which is a big deal because I love
Yeah.
my coffee. And I had low egg numbers. So we only had one actual egg. So we were, betting on just this one thing. So I went all in carnivore, as pure as it can be.
Hmm.
And we had a successful IVF pregnancy. And I really give so much credit to the carnivore diet because I think it put my body in a very happy place, in a stable environment where it felt it was healthy enough to be able to maintain a healthy pregnancy. Um, I didn't have PCOS, so it didn't really have a lot to do with insulin, but healing my gut, I think, helped a lot. And carnivore really is the best way to heal your gut for sure.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. When you eliminate literally all the things I suggested that the plants have anti-nutrients in them, and other things that may irritate you. So let's stay away from that and go animal based. But you also are like me in that you say, you know what, every once in a while I like a little plant in my life. So talk a little bit about, and we made a couple of short videos, one for your channel, one for mine, where we shared why we like ketovore, but share for this audience as well. What gave you the courage to say I may still test some of these plants a little bit and see how I do with them?
Okay. I have a very strong personality type. I don't like being told what to do and what not to do. So I think initially that was some of it. I have a lot of really good carnivore friends. My husband's a carnivore.
Yeah.
That community seems a little bit dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting a lot of kickback and, oh, you can't have a sauce and you can't have this and you can't have that. And I was like, okay, then I'm just not going to call myself a carnivore anymore. I'll call
Yeah.
myself a ketovore and just be done with that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's why I started calling myself ketovore. And then from then, it kind of became more of this. I like to call it a happy place between keto and
Yeah.
carnivore.
Yeah.
And it's so much more personalized as opposed to carnivore being, it's a lot of noise in keto and there's a lot of noise in carnivore. And I feel like us ketovores are a little bit more neutral,
Right.
you don't really care what you're eating. we're just glad you found your path and that it's working for you. And so for me, that's just where I found myself the most comfortable to share and talk about. I don't really love labels, but it does help people find you that are looking for you.
Right.
They're kind of a necessary evil.
That's right.
And on the days that I want to eat a vegetable, I just make sure that I'm sticking to something that's not going to affect me negatively. And because I went carnivore and did that as an elimination diet and then reintroduced those foods, I know exactly what I can have, what I can't have, what I can have sometimes, what I can have more than sometimes. Like onions don't affect me at all, while some people just cannot even tolerate onions.
Right.
So I do, and I feel like the ketovore allows you to be much more individualized and not feel like you're in a box
Right.
because it's
Right.
not this official thing. It's just kind of whatever you want it to be, as long
Yeah.
as a lot of meat, a lot of good healthy fats, and eating an adequate amount of protein and making sure that your fats come from good sources.
That's right. And I know a lot of people in the plant-based community are into hormesis, and they think, a little challenge to your body is a good thing. I think for many of us, particularly of us who have gotten sick from plants, um, that challenge was too much, right? So it is possible there are some people who are challenged and with the idea that it'll make you stronger, and who can tolerate that challenge. I think for us, we don't. So what I like about what you've done is you said, well, let me figure out, first of all, let's heal. So if you heal when you're challenged, you probably can tolerate a little bit more, hopefully. But more importantly, we want to live in a world where people have an opportunity to test themselves. Again, do that experiment, N of one. And I guess that's kind of like the next question. We talked about how this is the perfect elimination diet in a lot of ways. Why do what's your thoughts on the average person, right? You have a person who doesn't have autoimmune disease or doesn't have irritable bowel like myself. Should they consider an elimination diet?
I think everyone should do an elimination diet for the simple fact that you're going to benefit, your gut's going to benefit no matter where you're coming from, disease wise, or if you're completely healthy or you think you're completely healthy. Uh, um, Understanding how foods affect you from a pure standpoint after you have healed that gut, a lot of things I thought didn't bother me actually did bother me once I had done 90 days of carnivore or even longer than honestly. I have a video on my YouTube, it's so real, of me. I was not pregnant, but I had just eaten, I think, cauliflower rice.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was cauliflower rice. And I looked 3 months pregnant because I instantly reacted to
Wow.
that. And it caused me all kinds of bloating and discomfort and gas and just, it was not fun. I did
Wow.
not enjoy that. Prior to going carnivore and really healing my gut, cauliflower rice didn't affect me.
Interesting.
Or was I just not aware enough to be able to notice that it affected me?
That's
Now,
right.
who knows? But I do know that after I went pure carnivore and reintroduced those foods individually, I could really understand how things affected me. And not just physically, but mentally too, because I
That's
struggled
right.
with anxiety. And I can tell you right now, a milkshake will make me a crazy person. I'll right back into that. I'm full of emotions and all my stoicism goes out the window and I'm
Wow.
100% emotional and 0% logical. And that sugar just
It
messes
just
me up for about 48 hours. So I know exactly how different foods, different ingredients affect me. And I think that's powerful to be able to know your body that well, to know what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you can eat in moderation, and what you just really need to stay away from.
it sounds logical to me, but it also seems logical to just go and find some type of food sensitivity test and do it that way. So why can't I just do that?
Well, Dr. Hampton, I think you know exactly how I feel about this. I actually did take a food sensitivity test because I wanted to just see what it said because I'd done a lot of research and from some doctors that I follow on social media that aren't famous, but they're very, very smart. And
Mm-hmm.
they focus on autoimmune diseases. And they've been doing this for 25 years. And they really broke down on why food sensitivity tests are trash and just do not really serve any meaningful uh, data to you. And that the elimination diet is, first of all, cheaper and much more effective healing your gut and much more effective for you figuring out how you react to certain foods. So my food sensitivity test told me that I should not eat eggs, but that I could eat as much rice as I wanted.
Oh, please.
And I was like, trash.
Yes, trash, right. No way. My allergist, Dr. Michael Fogg, was a previous guest on the podcast, and he also kind of said a lot of these tests are a waste of time. The best test is when you eat something
Right,
and you do it that way, because the tests are just kind of not, and what you're saying is amazing. So the things I eat the most of is the stuff I'm going to be sensitive to, really. And
right.
then the things I don't eat and the stuff I shouldn't eat, like rice, it's insane. So please, people, when you check out this episode, again, eliminate, save your money, do an elimination diet, and you're going to do much better. There are some vegetables that you tolerate. So give me an idea of which ones. Like for me, it's probably greens in general. I tolerate green beans, and I can tolerate cauliflower rice, maybe. See, one of the things about you guys, Dr. Berry, yourself, because if I Google ketovore, your name pops up. I mean, I don't know why, but it just does. So right, you've met the algorithm, whatever that means. but but it's like, you know, you have to have some courage to move from where I was, vegan, vegetarian, ketovore, most of the time carnivore. And that's why the work you're doing is so important. You have to have some level of confidence in the person that's in front of you. That's why I like the fact that you guys share studies and other data to support the work that's being done. So I really appreciate that. But I just think people who are watching have to be willing to do the experiment. So from your experiment, which vegetables do you tolerate the most? For me, green beans, greens, things like that.
I tolerate, let's see, avocados tend to be fine for me if I want some avocado. I'm okay with certain kinds of dairy,
Mm-hmm.
not all dairy, but certain, so hard cheeses, Romano, Parmesan. I do okay with lactose free milk, where heavy cream actually causes me to have a lot of breakouts and hormonal
Mm-hmm.
acne. So that, and let's see, what's another thing I really, onions, obviously. I mean, if you've watched
Yes.
any of my What I Eat in a Day vlogs, you're going to see onions probably.
Onions. Yes.
And I mean, that's really mostly where I stay. A few
Yeah.
tomatoes in the summer on a salad if I'm feeling like a salad. Romaine lettuce. So I'll eat some romaine lettuce every now and then if I want a Caesar salad with a lot of anchovies on it. Always, there's a lot of meat involved, even when I eat the vegetables.
Right.
And that's pretty much where I stay. But yeah, what you said, it's exactly true. Dr. Hampton, myself, Ken, like we can all get on here and share so much information with you. But at the end of the day, we cannot tell you what will or will not work for you. You
That's
have to
right.
put the work in, and you should want to put the work in because it's for your own benefit. And at the end of the day, we get one body and it's all we got, and we got to treat it the best way, and it'll treat us well back
That's
if
right.
we put the work in. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it is simple.
That's right. And your age is only a number. And there are many days when I have patients or team members with me who are in their 20s and 30s and they're just struggling. And so your age, if you put the wrong fuel in your body, you're going to not feel good. So it's important that we do the experiment. And then with support, sometimes you need support when you're saying no to things that you love, but they don't love you back, right? We
Yes.
have to have support to get through that. So we talked about nutrition. What other lifestyle things that you do that make a huge difference? Anything in particular that you go to other than diet?
Right. We talk about food so much, but I really think it's 50-50. I think it's 50% lifestyle and 50% nutrition
Yeah.
diet. It's a full, all-encompassing lifestyle. So for me, especially with anybody with autoimmune disease, sleep is so important. It is not talked about enough. If you are not getting quality sleep and rest, that will affect your autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
Stress can affect your autoimmune disease. For myself, I had anxiety runs in my family, and I had really bad anxiety, and I had to really do a lot of healing. We had a lot of things go down in the past few years that caused a lot of mental trauma and stress, and I had to really dig deep and do a lot of work on making decisions and being intentional about my emotions and not letting my emotions control me, but the other way around. So I practice stoicism. I love Ryan Holiday's books, The Daily Stoic. All of his books really are wonderful. And that really, I'm a Christian and I pray, and but I something about the way that Stoicism relates to that, I feel like they go hand in hand, and I'm better able to let go of the stress and understand it is literally not in my control.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
99% of things that we worry about aren't in our control.
That's right.
And once I got over that big mountain, my sleep got better. I didn't stress out as much, and I was just more at peace. And being on social media, you get all of these negative comments all the time, and I was better able to not let those bring me down
That's right.
too. And I love your acronym because it really is, I think, the most important things people should focus on. And we talk so much about food, and it really is so much more than that. It's lifestyle, it's sleep, it's understanding your emotions and your relationship to food. And if you
Yeah.
don't really address all that underlying issue, which most people have, the food can only take you so far. You got to do that extra work.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I don't know if I think Ken may have had Dennis Pollock on his show once, maybe, but he's the beat diabetes guy. I want to do a shout out to him. I bring him up because you mentioned you're spiritual. He's a pastor, and his tone, it calms you down.
I
So
love
we need people who are sharing this message who sometimes bring that spiritual perspective, because so many people in our country want to have their faith to guide their decisions. So having someone who's teaching them with that foundation is very important. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to want to start ketovore, carnivore. Any basic suggestions, resources? Obviously, your channel would be one.
Right.
Your husband's channel would be two.
Right.
Any other thoughts about how to get started?
Yeah, so I have tons of videos on my channel of what I eat in a day that show exactly what I eat. But I also have a video that I posted, I think, 3 years ago. But it's 13 ketovore basics, and it
Yeah.
really breaks down what ketovore is, how to apply it in a way that is
Mhm.
effective,
Yeah, I
and
saw that
makes them
video actually. Yeah, I think I'll share that because that is exactly what people need. So,
It's one of my best performing videos, which at the time I did not think that was going to be a high
right.
performing
You
video.
never
I
know,
was just
right?
doing it. Yeah, you never know. YouTube
When
is
I
so
look at your videos and Ken's, I can't like if something really does well versus doesn't, it's hard to they don't seem different to me. So I don't understand.
I don't even know. It's just
That's
the
right.
weirdest thing. I can't understand it. But then
That's right.
also, starting January 1st, we have a group. It's a community. It's Dr. Berry's group, but I'm running a ketovore challenge in there, and I'm
Cool.
really walking everybody through how to start ketovore, and not just ketovore as a lifestyle, but ketovore as a bridge to doing the carnivore elimination diet,
Yeah. Yeah.
reintroducing the foods, and then building your own ketovore, because every
Nice.
ketovore looks different.
Yeah, people are going to need that, and I'm so glad I asked that question because again, we need to provide tools and resources for people who are really trying to heal until the rest of the medical community catches up. So, and that's kind of my goal. I meet with my leadership in the next few weeks, and we're going to be trying to bring some, kind of research like Dr. Tro has done, Dr. Unwin, to my health system, and then we can kind of hopefully influence other health systems. So.
That would be great.
So let's talk a little bit about how we're going to keep you being beautiful and energetic and doing all this work. So when it comes to protecting your nest, what aspects do you plan to give additional attention over the next 12 months?
Right. So every year, we all set new goals for each other. So, nutrition wise, I'm trying to be way more intentional with where my food comes from, because I feel like that is a huge thing that I can do that can make a big impact. So, locally sourced beef, we already do that. We raise our own sheep. And we have our own backyard chickens that lay our eggs. So we've made big steps. But I also enjoy chicken and pork, and so I'd like to find a good source of a pastured pork, that's fed a healthy diet, chicken that's organically free ranged, and just work on really be intentional with where I get my foods from.
Okay, cool.
Exercise. I do not like exercising. It's just not one of those things, which it's funny. I was always athletic. I played sports my whole life. And then after I graduated high school, I was just like, screw some exercising. And that's just how it stayed for the rest of my life up until recently. In the new year, I am trying to be more, my overall word here, my word for 2023 is intentional. I'm trying to be
Right.
intentional with increasing my movement. That doesn't mean I'm ever going to be Dr. Jamie Seaman. I'm
Right.
never
Right.
going to be that, but I can be better. I can move
That's
more. I
right.
do have osteoporosis in my family. So it is important that
Yes.
I do this for my health. And so now my perspective on that is shifted to it's not to look good. It's because I don't want to have kyphosis, and I don't want to have a hip fracture, and I don't want all these things to happen. And then relationships, spending really quality time with my family and having experiences with them. And let's see, trauma and
Mm.
stress. I think just continuing to practice stoicism and be very mindful of my emotions and how I let outside factors affect my inside.
Yeah, I think people should look up stoicism because I think that's a nice little tip that many people have not even thought about. So I appreciate all of that, and I really appreciate the work you guys are doing. And again, it's a journey. We're all kind of people may look at you guys or look at me or any other and say, "Oh, they figured it out." No, we haven't.
No,
we're still we're
no.
still we're still on a journey. We're maybe further down the road than a few other people, but man, I tell you, it's a journey, and I will continue to take this journey. And what I like about you is that you're like, you're hanging out with the kids, you're like, washing dishes, all kinds of crazy stuff. So you're just keeping it real. This is the life in the day of Neisha, and I think that's a great way to kind of engage people. So keep doing that great work. I know you're busy. Thank you for taking time to join me today. I was looking forward to this. It took 100 episodes later after your husband, but that's okay.
Oh, well, I made it.
You made it. That's right. So we're good. So thanks again. And I'll wrap up with a few of my thoughts. And I guess I should ask you first, let's remind people how to find you. Not that they should have to struggle, but is it primarily YouTube, or where can people find you?
So I'm the most active social media wise on YouTube. It's my favorite platform. I love editing and putting together videos and really doing live Q&A streams. And then second to that, I'm very active in our community. So that's you can find that at www.phdhealth.community, and I'm sure Dr. Hampton will put the link in the comments for you guys, or the description. And that's where I try to stay, because I feel like that's where I can do the most work and help the most
Mhm.
people, and it's the most enjoyable for me as well, and it doesn't feel like work at all. It feels like I'm just doing my job, and my job is one of my favorite things to do. So I get up
Right.
every morning and I check my email, and then I get in the community and I answer questions,
That's
and
cool.
then if my kids are acting right, I film a YouTube video.
One last question. I know I'll be going to Costa Rica, for a couple of days. So I know Ken's coming. Are you going to be there for that, or?
Oh no.
Okay, so
Oh
it'll
no.
just be Ken.
Yeah,
Okay.
you guys have fun and take
All
some
right.
selfies, and rub it in my face that y'all are down
That's
there.
that's right. It is Costa Rica. So for those who don't know what we're talking about, there, Charles Maddox is filming a reversed carnivore documentary, and I was invited along with Ken and some others to join. So looking forward to that. I just wanted to see if you're going. My wife's not coming either, so
Okay, all
but
right.
we'll find another event down. We will definitely meet. You will definitely meet my wife in 2023 because we have a couple of events we're going to go to. So
Right.
we're going to look at your calendar and make it work. Okay.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
All right. Thanks again. And appreciate you. And
Okay.
as we wrap up this episode, guys, thank you for checking it out. A few tips, since we talked a little bit about autoimmune disease. The first tip that I've learned in my functional medicine training, you got to get tested for other autoimmune conditions. They tend to travel together. So if you have celiac, get a thyroid panel, a complete one. If you have thyroid, check celiac. Do the ANA to make sure. So make sure you do that first. As as our guest has suggested, you should think about an elimination diet. Some people tolerate gluten, others don't, but gluten is one of the things we worry about. That's that celiac connection. But do an elimination diet. Your intestinal lining may be suffering just because you have not taken time to do that. It's clear for anybody that watches my channel or Neisha's or Dr. Berry's, got to get rid of carbs, got to get rid of refined sugar. And when we say carbs, to the level where you can tolerate it. And for some people, it's keto, some kind of, ketovore, some carnivore. Artificial sweeteners, seed oils, alcohol, be careful with that. Processed foods in general. Neisha talked about reducing stress. She talked about getting some sleep. I write articles for the Diet Doctor. If you search my name in the Diet Doctor, you'll find some of the articles I write for them as well. And if I really dive into my functional medicine training, I would talk about heavy metals. Sometimes those implants in your teeth have amalgams and things like that in it that can harm you. So we need to remove those chemicals from our body, detoxify. One of my favorite guests from the past was Wendy Truebo, and don't get it wrong, Neisha. Her book is called Dirty Girl, so don't tell Ken. And the dirty girl refers to removing toxins. She's dirty from toxins. Is not what you was thinking. So check out that book and start to detoxify. It may be your cosmetics, it may be the plastic. And we're still on a journey. I still got a plastic bottle here. I'm still working on that, but I want everybody to do that. And Neisha also talked about exercise, but don't overdo it. I do Dr. Ben Bokikio's program, 15 minutes twice a week. That's how I was able to get it together. So maybe you can try that as well. So that's all I have to say. I'm really thankful that I had a chance to finally have this interview. I thank all of you guys who checked out this episode. And until the next Protecting Your Next episode, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.